Hi YouTube, we're going to be taking a look at Rebuild 2, which is a Flash game which is available to play for free on various different sites like Congregate, and you can also pick it up for pretty much every mobile device ever. It's out on the iPad, the iPhone, Android. I think it's also out on devices you're not really going to see too many games on, like the BlackBerry Playbook, which is really cool, and you can pick it up on the Kindle Fire, anything like that. So it's very easy to find. The game has been out for a while now, I think a couple of years since the original. This is Rebuild 2, and the reason I'm showing this one rather than the original is because Rebuild 2 is essentially the game that Rebuild 1 was meant to be. It's less of a sequel and more of just an add-in of pretty much everything that the original game was going to be. And the mobile versions, especially I think the Android version, do have some new features that Rebuild 2 doesn't have, but for the sake of being able to record this easily, I've chosen to play the PC version in a Flash player. So for those of you that haven't heard of Rebuild at all, the blurb on the Northway website is that the game is about gathering survivors of the zombie apocalypse and managing resources while defending against undead attacks. Reclaim the city one square at a time and put your survivors to work scavenging for food, building houses, rediscovering technology, and of course killing zombies. And that is what it is. It's a city rebuilding turn-based strategy resource management game. The developer Sarah Northway wanted to set out to build a sort of post-apocalyptic Simcity, and while you don't actually build much yourself in the game, you do get to retake old buildings, change them around, mess around with them depending on what you need at the time. So it does have a very Simcity feel, and it certainly looks quite a lot like Simcity. So just to show you the basic config, I mean there's not a lot here because it's a Flash game, but you have the ability to turn on the music, turn on and off sounds. There's harsh language, which I've turned on, tutorial and full screen. I'm going to leave the tutorial off. I've played this several times on my phone. I haven't played the PC version much, but I should be okay. And you can turn full screen on, and that's pretty much all the options. I've turned the music off. I find the music in this game is pretty grating and gets quite annoying quite quickly, so the music in the background of this video isn't actually the game's music. Let's start a new game. So at the start of every game you get to choose a character, and you do this by editing these boxes here. So we just type in a new name, and you can be a man or a woman dependent, and you can change the way you look. So let's give myself, that guy looks awesome. And you can also choose something that you take with you. At the start of the game, it's not immediately obvious what some of this stuff will do. You've got a pistol, binoculars, a dog, a wrench, and a hat. And I'm just going to choose a pistol because it's fairly obvious that that's going to increase my ability to kill things. It gives you a random city name. We've got Portland here. I'm just going to choose London, because it makes more sense, and you can change the size of the city from small and typical. One of the things you can do on the mobile version is, I think you can get bigger cities, I'm almost certain you can, and you can change the difficulty here as well. Now, Rebuild is one of those games where it's actually as fun to fail as it is to succeed, and it's not actually all that easy as well. I mean, for a Flash game, it's kind of deceptive. I have completed the game on pretty easy, and that was pretty easy. Kind of tough and challenging are much more difficult, and I've failed at challenging a few times. And you've got seriously hard and impossible. For the sake of a video that I want to last at least a few minutes, I'm going to go with challenging. And then we start the game. The game generates a random city, and the city is a grid of 30 squares, and we can see some of them here, not all of them. You have a view distance based on where you are, and this barbed wire area is your base. And there's a number of ways to completely win the game, and I'll go into those more as we go through. But the general idea is to take over the grayed out squares and bring them into being part of your initial base. And as you grow, you get more resources, you get more tools, and you get more survivors to help you out. The game is split into different resources, and you've got the resource bar up here. So to go through, to give you a general idea of what you need to do during the game, You've got a population limit, which is currently sitting at 10, and I have 6 survivors already. So you can look here, and these guys were all part of the original base. So there's my own character. I mean, he's just brilliant looking, brilliant beard. He's got skill in leadership, which, to be honest, I think anyone with that sort of beard and that sort of hat, especially if he wears it all the time with a suit, is definitely going to have a good leadership skill. And I've also got a little bit of an offense skill, probably because I'm holding a pistol. We've got some other characters here. They're different types. These guys are all basically offensive guys, but you'll notice they've got absolutely no weapons, nothing useful on them. And Hans here is a scavenging guy, so he can go out and find new stuff for you. That's his one skill right now. And finally, you've got Brad, who looks like he should be wearing my hard hat, to be honest, and he is the builder, and they can reclaim buildings and do all the stuff you need to do to get these squares back in your control. So right now we can have 10 survivors, and we've got these houses here, and that's a church, ignore that. We've got apartment blocks here which can hold survivors, I think 2 survivors maybe, and we've got houses which can also hold survivors, suburbs even. There's a few other buildings I think that can hold them, and the more that you have, the higher your population can go up. As you have the population increase, you have to feed people, and you feed people with farms. There are a few other different ways, I believe, but the main way is farms. So you've got these farms here, pick them up, and they gather food per turn. You can also scavenge food as well from pretty much any building in the game, although I think some buildings have more of a chance of getting food in them. Scavenging farms and places like this shopping mall here can get you more food than scavenging a church, probably. I may have made that up completely. The next one is your defense, or your danger, sorry. This is basically the amount of danger the entire base is in. As you play the game, zombies are going to attack, and they will try to breach your walls, and when they breach your walls, there's like a percentage chance of whether or not they'll get in, and if they get in, I mean, normally, if you let them in more than once or twice in a challenging game, you're pretty screwed. You'll have guys coming in, and they'll just take buildings that you've already taken, which can be a huge drain on resources, and they'll kill your guys, which is a really big problem because your guys gain experience, and if your experienced guys will die, you're pretty much left at the start, except with a much larger sort of zombie horde coming at you. So you really want to keep that as low as possible, and you do that by fortifying and putting people on guard duty, which we'll do in a second. The police stations here help you to keep the base safe, but you need people in them for it to actually work. This resource here is just a matter of how many tiles overall. We've got 30 tiles out of the 30. We haven't got the city hall, which is one of the ways you can win. There's no research being done, and there are no missions going on. And finally, there is happiness. Certain buildings give your guys happiness. Churches and bars, if they have people in them, can generate happiness, and there are different random events that will either give you happiness or take happiness away from you. And those are the 5 resources. The first 2, the people, the population limit, and the food, are the ones you really got to focus on straight away. Very quickly have to start worrying about this on challenging mode, and especially during the mid and end games, happiness becomes a really big issue as well. This is just the options menu again, and this brings up the main game menu, and this is an overlay which gives you an idea of what's going on, especially if you go out and scout new buildings. The buildings with little icons of people on them have survivors in them, and these ones here have food. As you gain equipment, which you'll get from salvaging or from random events or from trade, you can equip your guys, and the equipment will always change one of these different attributes. It's one of the ways to level up your guys quickly, which is really useful. If you can get a shotgun, you can stick that in there, you'll get a lot more offense, which is great. It lets you specialize your guys a little bit more as well. As you play, these attributes go up as well, so if I send my guy on various leadership missions, he's going to get better at leadership. And there is a building called the school, I believe this is a school here. Once you've taken this over, you can also train people in different things. And I think the last thing, the major element of the game that I haven't spoken about, I can't really show right now, and that's the research, where you can research different tech things that change the way the game plays out. So that's pretty much how the game works, and the idea is to pick up the tiles, which I will actually start doing and start grabbing some of this land in part 2. Thanks for watching.